that question. Have you got the body? The cornerstone for justice. Can you show a body for the people to see? In police investigation, in kidnapping foreign citizens, in U.S. international terrorism, in the prison system holding up our economy as surely as slavery in the early days, in the rubbery tentacles of parole that can reel a body back in years after release, for a dirty urine, for an in-your-face political stance, for a rally, for a public speech. They can reel you in like so many lobster traps in the Gulf of Maine. Reel you into the Deuce Club, where you live your years out, 2 at a time, paroled and nine. Paroled and nine. Paroled and nine. As long as they have domain over the body. Habeas corpus? Yes, they have the body. And they can gnaw away at anyone on the outside who tries to get in. I've calculated in 10,000 days, more than 26 years, I've seen prisoners ganged up on by guards with sticks, right in front of me, an ordinary citizen. Their glasses broken at the visiting room door. I've seen lines of men with carbon copy shackles from the slave days shuffle by me. Have seen whole families reviled for visiting, mothers stripped of dignity and under wire rods. I have worked inside a prison for women forbidden to touch, forbidden to hug each other. I've been in meeting rooms wired to sound that could kill in an ear and provoke waves of monsters. I've been hustled through the back ways to sidestep the murder of a man in solitary. What can they do? Anything they want. They have the body. Habeas corpus blues for blue. The poet who will never get out under Governor Gray. Not one murderer released on his watch. He overthrew his own investigative panels, his own California judges. Habeas corpus blues for every long-termer who has violence in a particular crime in Kentucky's New York. Only 1 out of 17 released by parole board Robespierre's cabal of commissioners. 22 people who sit in judgment over 64,000 souls. Habeas corpus blues for an Irish warrior, Gary McGivern, wheeled on the gurney to his deathbed, who would not release his grip on his sister's hand, would not let them take him down. Habeas corpus blues for a system I wish I could hang on the nearest tree, but overthrow is molecular from the inside out. Lenore Candell says, iron is the fulcrum of the universe. These are gray green smothering times. Cowardice is king. These are gray green smothering times. Cowardice is king. Christ is more alive than some of these men, said the chaplain of Attica, and most of the passers-by outside. Habeas corpus blues for a citizenry that does not see. If they come to me tonight, it is for you in the morning. For a press that won't speak out, will not bear witness. Habeas corpus, do they have the body in the body politic? Looks like every day they have a little bit more.
That was obviously Janine Pommy Vega, a poem called Habeas Corpus Blues, and it's from Kurt Hemmer's 2013 documentary, Love Janine. I think it's actually not called Love Janine Pommy Vega, but they call it Love Janine. Anyway, thank you for being here. My name is Danny Schott. I'm the poet in residence here at the Hoboken Museum. Bill just told me they have a cop upstairs, So now I actually can be the poet in residence. I'd like to thank the Hoboken Historical Museum for doing events like this. And I would like to mention there's a donation box back there. This is a free event, for sure. But doing events like this does cost money, so you could slip in a 5, a 10, 20, 50, 100, whatever. There's a box back there, and it is greatly appreciated, and it's so that the museum can continue doing cultural events also. I also want to mention that in January, a new exhibit is going to be up all around the museum called The Meadows. And I'm really excited about it because Hoboken once, believe it or not, was an island. And everything, I want to say west of Willow because I have friends who are in the west of Willow group, but I think everything west of maybe Clinton or Adams used to be marshland. Anyway, I'm excited about the upcoming events. So, let's talk about Janine Pommy Vega and why we're doing this. Bill, I do think we could use a little more light in here now, even though I'm totally happy, I can see fine, but I think maybe a little more light for people who want to take pictures and stuff. Okay. Thank you again to the Hoboken Historical Museum, particularly, I mean everyone on the staff, but particularly Bob Foster, Vera Sirota, Rand Hoppy, our tech guy, Bill Curran, our greeter, and everyone involved. Thank you. Thank you. Janine Pommy Vega was born in 1942 and grew up in Union City, New Jersey. For those watching live stream and who are not here, Union City is up the hill west. I talked about the Meadows. West of the Meadows, up the hill is Union City. Janine was born there. She graduated high school as valedictorian at the age of 16 years old. Because back then, students who were really bright or precocious got skipped a grade or two. She moved to New York City right after graduation and lived with Allen Ginsberg and Peter Orlovsky. She went on to develop a strong feminist voice in the Beat movement. Over the next 5 decades, from the late 50s on, Janine traveled the world and published 18 books of poetry and prose, including Poems to Fernando, which was City Lights, Mad Dogs of Trieste, Black Sparrow, The Green Piano, also Black Sparrow, and the memoir Tracking the Serpent, City Lights, which chronicles her travels across several continents and the search for ancient matriarchal goddess sites. And Vera has been sending me, emailing me selections from Tracking the Serpent, and I've enjoyed reading them. Janine was also active in promoting poetry in New York State correctional facilities through Bard College's Bard Prison Initiative and as director of Incision Arts. She taught poetry in public schools and migrant centers. Her reach was far. She spent the last decades of her life in Willow, New York, which is right next to Woodstock, with fellow poet Andy Clausen. And she passed away in 2010, and today we are honoring her as one of our own, Hudson County, born and raised. So let me start with a poem. The name of this event is Roots Revisited, and the poem I'm going to read is Roots Revisited. Long row of cribbed houses, startled in their sleep by a flight of gulls. Old pastures seamed and paved over, cliffs abandoned to high-rise apartments. Rain-soaked cardboard boxes slide down the hill. The eye takes refuge in a wake of birds from bickering heritage, a cramped continuum, and spotted leaves. A past left long ago in a graveyard back alley. Flight from Roots revisited. Rubble graces the remains of a sultry day, November, and no winter in sight. A train of boxcars rumbles by in the hazy sun over Hoboken. Land mass soaked in its homemade stream to the latitude of southern cities, Washington and Baltimore, a rose blooming in November, and a man in his frantic narrow bed turns over and over. Thanksgiving over the marshland and debris, the roar of traffic, clanking wheels, a bird on an empty park bench turns his head. Written in Weehawken, New Jersey, Thanksgiving, 1975. You know, when I think about that poem, and when I hear it, and I'm picturing it in my head, some of those lines would go very well with the Meadows exhibit, because she's describing being up on the hill looking down into Hoboken. Okay, let's get started with the poets. Called Another Classic Bard by Allen Ginsberg, Elliot Katz is the author of 7 books of poetry, including Love, War, Fire, Wind, and Unlocking the Exits. In early 2020, he posted a free PDF poetry volume on his website entitled President Predator, Poems to Help Make America Trump Free Again.
Yeah.
How'd that work out? Elliot was co-founder with Danny Schott of the long-running Long Shot Literary Magazine, and a book of his new and selected poems, Liberation Recalled, is currently being translated into Italian for a 2025 publication in Florence. Elliot was recently named a New Generation Beat Poet Laureate by the National Beat Poetry Foundation. I know. Elliot's late mother is a Holocaust survivor, and he has worked for decades as an activist for a wide range of peace and social justice causes, including help to create several housing and food programs for Central Jersey homeless families that remain ongoing. He lives right here in Hoboken. His website is elliottkatzpoetry.com. And I need to mention, Elliot was good friends with and did many readings with Janine Pommy Vega. Let's have a warm round of applause for Hoboken's Elliot Katz.
So first, let me say it's great to be here, great to see so many people here. Thank you to Danny and Vera and the Hoboken Historical Museum for putting together this reading for Janine Pommy Vega, who was a dear friend. I'm gonna start off by reading a short prose tribute that I wrote for Janine and read initially at a 2010 memorial for Janine at the Bowery Poetry Club in New York City. And then I'm going to read a poem of Janine's and then some of my poems. Hopefully sticking to the 15 minutes we've been asked to go for. So, tribute to Janine Pommy Vega. Janine Pommy Vega was a trailblazer extraordinaire. As a poet, as an adventurer, and as a passionate and dedicated advocate for social justice. I'd read some of Janine's work before meeting her, and then had the pleasure to get to know her as a good friend in the mid-1990s after she started going out with my longtime poet friend Andy Clausen. Janine's work was riveting, both on the page and on the stage, filled with the determination to find new perspectives for eyeing the sometimes blossoming but too often decaying heart of our planet's present moment, and also new ways of imagining rhythmic routes to a more humane future. And she lived her life in line with her poetic ideals, including many years spent teaching poetry in prisons and teaching migrant farm workers poetry. When I first met Janine, my partner Vivian and I would go up from Astoria, Queens, where we were living then, to Woodstock and Willow, where Vivian and Janine would spend time tending Janine's garden, and where Vivian and I did a number of poetry readings with Janine and Andy. In her later years, as Janine began to be hit by rheumatoid arthritis, I was always impressed at the way Janine refused, right up until the end of her life, to let her debilitating illness keep her from continuing her energetic literary and activist work. During the later George W. Bush years, Janine invited me one afternoon to be the guest poet in her class at the Eastern Correctional Men's Prison in upstate New York. After my reading, the men in her prison class had an open reading, and then we all had an incredibly lively discussion about current political events, including the crisis of America's rightward and militaristic drift. When I remarked that the open reading was one of the most exciting and perceptive open readings I'd ever attended, several of the men credited their devoted and inspiring teacher. Although Janine's work hasn't through the years received the critical attention that many of us think it deserves, that is beginning to change as scholars of the Beat Studies Association have begun to focus more on Janine's work and the work of other women poets of the Beat generation. And Kurt Hemmer, who did that film, is one of the main people in the Beat Studies Association. As America once again moves to the right with the election of the, this is obviously was not something I wrote back then, but something I wrote now. As America once again moves to the right with the election of the authoritarian-leaning, malignant narcissist Donald Trump, it is good that we still have Janine's inspiring, justice-urging voice with us in books and in moving videos for the work of striving for peace, greater democracy, human interdependence, and the life-sustaining abilities of the planet. So that was my tribute for Janine. And here is one of my favorite poems of Janine. Now, Danny mentioned to you that I posted a thing on my website about poems to keep America Trump-free again. Well, in 2004, I also guest edited a special issue of Long Shot magazine. There was a Beat Bush issue. So obviously, I don't have a good record on helping to defeat presidents. But this was a poem that I took going through a lot of Janine's poems for that issue of the Long Shot Beat Bush issue, which Janine later published in her book, The Green Piano. This is called Wartime Kitchen. I think of Yano Ritsos' women marching to the kitchen at the first sound of war. I think of the bulk of Grandma in Jersey City, a bulk I could never duplicate as I pad across the floor to grind the sweet basil grown last season, to brush the cat, to chop garlic for salad dressing. Deliberately quiet tasks, though I could start throwing pots around like my mother, I can tell you, make such a ruckus, you would wonder who had gone insane. And it's the world in the photos I will not bring home, in the leering, sneering posture of an imposter president put in charge by corporate fists. I could show you how weeping has worn a hole in my heart as deep as the slippers she thrust her feet in cold Polish mornings. I've become that babushka woman, witnessing carnage. All wisecracks are out of place. No jokes for broken children or screaming mothers. Dead soldiers are children themselves. No jokes for the children, everybody's children. I do not forgive their slaughter. The oil, the arms, the gold, piled high as this house, cannot buy their laughter, cannot bury their shrieks in the night. I accuse the old white men drowned in greed of their murder. I will bang every pot and pan I own for a world free of their hands. That was Janine's Wartime Kitchen. With my own poems, I'm going to start with an older poem that some of you have heard, but it was one of the poems of mine that Janine likes. I want to start with this one. It's called Dinosaur Love. On the Museum of Natural History's 4th floor, I greeted my old friend. Hey T-Rex, long time no see. My buddy flashed his killer teeth. Over 2 years, he cats, I missed you. Surprised, I asked, you missed me? I didn't know dinosaurs had emotions. Rexy, did you know love? Rexy sighed. I knew love, not as humans do. Not as humans can, but as humans do. Love of self and love of finding something weaker to pounce upon. Eat cats, can your species be saved by love's possibilities? Rexy, I answered, you haven't lost your ability to ask the tough question. Let me ask you something we humans have been curious about for centuries. How did you die? I don't know. One day I looked around and I wasn't there. Marching barefoot. By the tens of thousands, Burmese Buddhist monks are shown on blogger videos marching bravely and barefoot for democracy and a decent economic life. America's President Bush knows that childrens are learning. So he speaks to the UN with a cue card of mispronunciations in his cupped palm, making declarations about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that come without a shred of credibility attached. Which country will lose the race to recognize the human rights to housing and health care? These are perilous times for pedestrians walking in bare feet. Too many leaders, east, west, north, south, have refused to sign the treaty to keep used razor blades off their city sidewalks. Wherever we take a stroll these days, we are stepping on globalized blood. Because Janine did a lot of work with migrants, teaching migrants poetry, I'm going to read a couple of poems related to immigration issues. One small reason the president's, this is a very short one, one small reason the president's border wall and Muslim ban are wrong. With crazy policies on weaponization and environmental regulation, Donald Trump is clearly a greater threat to the planet than the people he is trying to keep out. Another poem about our old and upcoming president. Would Trump's wall perform magic tricks? Trump says a wall of concrete or steel slats has to be built along the US-Mexico border for national security. So I am wondering what magic tricks it would perform. Could the wall tell that I have picked a jack of clubs out of my deck of blue striped playing cards? Would the wall rain newborn rabbits down from a hat on its highest point? Could the wall read Trump's sociopathic mind and stop his pathological lying? Would the wall prevent Zeta Reticules from piloting flying saucers across national boundaries? If the wall could really protect our security, would it draw down CO2 and methane to reverse climate change? Will it find thousands of lost children kidnapped by Homeland Security from Central American parents? Could it do something to make Trump's skin look more human? Would it safely melt the world's nuclear missiles and power plants and drink up radioactive plutonium shakes? Would concrete or steel slats improve global free speech protection? Could a wall provide medical treatments for sick kids whose parents cannot afford a doctor? Will it stop another meteor from destroying Earth's large-sized life again? Or bring back even one recently extinct species? Could it prevent the monthly flooding and power outages in my hometown of Hoboken? Would it create a new Israeli-Palestinian peace plan? Could the wall compete against the best magicians on America's Got Talent? Can it send more young progressives like AOC into Congress? Could it fix the broken zipper on my winter jacket? Filter out the lead in too many U.S. water supplies? Find a cure for chronic Lyme disease? Would the wall offer a good resting pillow for the necks of zebras? Could it patch potholes, stabilize bridges, fix electric grids, prevent ransom computer viruses from spreading across the web, including lately here in Hoboken? Would the wall prevent Trump from ripping up any more peace treaties? Okay, I just picked a new card. Wall, can you tell me what it is? A couple of short anti-war poems. Never again for whom? As the son of an Auschwitz survivor mom, I believe that never again should mean no mass killing of any group or the international community should intervene. Can the UN please send peacekeepers right away to the Israel-Gaza border to stop the Israeli far right from sending more war crime bombs into Gaza that I believe even most Israelis will come to regret. Where to write names. No innocent parent should have to write their child's name across a leg or torso. Which would be best? So the body could be identified if bombed to death and found under rubble. To speak up or not to speak up. As the son of an Auschwitz survivor mom, it hurts to have to say Israel and war crimes or Israel and genocide in the same exhaled breath. But after the killing of 30,000 Gazans, including over 12,000 children, after roving tank medicine starvation blockades, after the use of hundreds of 2,000-pound bombs that can't possibly see the difference in crowded asphalt neighborhoods between Hamas militants and civilian kids, and after the authoritative International Court of Justice has ruled that Israel's military is committing a plausible case of genocide in Gaza, it would hurt a lot worse to stay silent.
Yes.
Two last poems, including one very short one, Hoboken history poem, since we're in the Hoboken History Museum. A cannon in Hoboken. In Hoboken Stevens Park, an 1800s cannon from the USS Portsmouth thankfully no longer works. May the same one day be true of all the missile launchers around the planet.
Yes.
And my last poem, my partner Vivian worked about 24 summers up in the boreal forest of northwest Canada as a fire lookout. And I used to go visit her each summer for a week or two and write lots of poems. This is one of the poems I wrote up at the boreal up in Canada's boreal forest. To the northern winds, July 4th. Sitting in cabin kitchen with Vivian, meditating with eyes open, following breath out nostrils, the day clear and beautiful, but cold and windy as hell. It's heaven up here in Canada's North Country. No inkling of industrial air pollution, not another human being within 50 miles, just Vivian and I re-energizing our love and daily nightly mercurial wanderings. Forest dust blows from here through the hemisphere. It slips through the eyelid and the screen door, nests between the molars and under the tongue. It can make a nation crazy or cause a dog to sit up and take notice. It's been a crazy damn year, full of death and the fear that creates more death, full of heightened alerts and habitual nightmares, full of bedroom intruders dressed in terrorist cloth and talking busted syntax on the Pentagon porch. Oh, northern winds, can you blow some uncommon sense into our nation down below? Can you wine and dine us this year with a cleansing tempest? Can you whistle and make our giant egos disappear? Can you help us start electing better presidents? Obviously not yet, but maybe one day soon. From up here where the winds howl, it's obvious nature abhors a fundamentalist judge and the whole pyramid scheme of corporate theft. The northern winds blow the leaves hard, but take time off so the trunks can rest. We remember the world wars and the inhuman slaughters. We recall the old famines and the new diseases, yet have begun to build another dangerous century. Last night, ravens flew figure eights near the cabin, playing in your gusts. Oh winds, we have learned to cross large continents to embrace our love. Can you shake us out of our future-destroying weaponry for a new start? Tell the children, another new century can begin whenever we choose.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. That was terrific. Millicent Ansa, fondly known, that's right, yeah. Fondly known as Millie, is an educator, poet, and community organizer who has called Jersey City home for over a decade. As a first-generation Ghanaian American, Millie believes in the transformative power of kindness and inclusivity, dedicating herself to building spaces where everyone feels welcome and connected. In 2023, she launched Mocha Mic with Millie, a monthly open mic event that serves as a creative haven led by and for Black women. Millie calls her attendees her tribe of scribes and good vibes, creating a space for unity, expression, and support. Mocha Mic is more than an event, it's a community. Millie is excited to continue her partnership with the Jersey City Library, leading poetry and creative workshops for children, and to collaborate with local businesses and partners to strengthen community ties and foster connections. Through each effort, Millie's mission remains clear: to bring people together in a spirit of kindness and connection. Let's hear it for Millicent Ansa.
That's a great bio. Hello, thank you. How you guys all doing? Good. How are you guys doing? Excellent. I don't know what that was, but that helped too. Well, thank you so much, Hoboken Historical Museum, for having me again here. This museum has a special place in my heart because I just love how they are so connected and in sync with making sure that they produce events that are culturally significant, but also help to bring people together, and I'm all about that. So thank you. Can we give it up for them? So when I first learned about Janine, I was like, wow, she was truly a trailblazer and all about helping to amplify other people in different communities. So that's very much what I'm about. So when I looked at the book, I connected to a piece about love. And I want to share it with you. It's called Hearts. Across an arena of floorboards, light arrives. Not summoned, light arrives on its own. A choreography of muscles pulling the seeds to pieces. In subterranean passageways, surf rolls over the stones. Electrical pulse in a nest of wings, the folded heron awaits the large arrival of the sun. Rose petals on your lower lip, hearts in its conjugal feast, a fist milking the cow of pleasure, an onion is singing us to sleep in the quarrel. Visit me as you would a holy country, where the good crops grow as promised, and the separate thorns resemble the waves of the sea. So with that piece, Janine talked a lot about nature. So all of the pieces I'm going to read for you today are new. Yes, all of that. We'll say new stuff. New stuff. And I just love the way that she was able to just converge nature and love. So all of that, this is all of that. This poem is called Brooklyn Love. Brooklyn, one of my homes, one of my heartbeats, where power hums under cracked sidewalks, graffiti streets walls, screaming stories of survival, the scent of halal trucks, vegetable carts, and subway grates, life in the raw. I walked in Brooklyn recently, and I remembered us. The way we walked Fulton Street together, the city's pulse in sync with ours, the rush of bodies, the symphony of car horns, the grits and grind that felt like home. Our love was just as loud. A fusion of jollof rice and sambusa, West and East Africa colliding, an explosion of spice and soul, and the kisses. Sudden, electric, drawing maps on each other's bodies, maps we believed led to eternity, not knowing our GPS was wrong. We danced to hip life, 90s R&B and ballad, the music of our upbringing, becoming a soundtrack to something raw, something real. Our intimacy was unspoken, and the touch of hands over shared meals, and laughter echoing through late night walks, and the rhythm of bodies moving to the beat of a city that seemed to sing just for us. We burned like Brooklyn streetlights, brilliance fleeting, impossible to ignore, but love isn't just fire. It's the work, the excavation of skeletons we carry, unpacking bones we'd rather bury. We didn't. We let the cracks grow, let passion fill the void where dedication should have been. And so love faded, but Brooklyn taught me something. Even love that doesn't last can be beautiful. It can leave marks like paint on brick, like a skyline that stays with you. Now I return to the scent, the sound, the grind, to the joy we shared, and the self-love I almost forgot to nurture. Because love isn't just what we give, it's the home we build within. And here, in the grit of the city, I am whole. Thank you. So I'm thinking about fast love. This is a little bit different. It's called the Tree of Love. Oftentimes they talk of love as if it strikes like lightning, an instant spark of fire ignited, love at first sight. But I wonder, can love begin as a seed, nestled quietly in the soil of possibility, a hushed promise waiting to breathe? From this tiny seed sprouts a tender stem, fragile but reaching, searching for the sun. Moments become its water, laughter its sunlight, trust its roots, sinking deep into shared earth. Branches stretched with intention, leaves unfurl to the warmth of care. Each story a memory, a proof of a growing tree. And when the trees bear fruits, its sweetness nourishes the bond, a harvest of joy shared and savored, a testament to what was sown. Even the leaves that carry burdens, when they fall, do not disappear. They return to the soil, fertilizing the connection, making the roots stronger, the love more enduring. It does not demand of storms or grandeur, nor bloom in a single night, but in steady rings of time. It stands a monument to patience, to life. So let them talk of lightning. I'll choose the seed. The slow, deliberate climb of love, becoming a tree. Thank you. So it's my last one, and it's called Love Letters. I read somewhere that we are all walking love letters, filled with chapters formed from tattered pages, binded by each loss, we made a game. And filled with smudged ink from tears we let escape, we are textbooks of everything. Every wrong ever done to us, every right ever done to us. Sections where we section off the memories we rather let fade. Sections where we section off the memories we rather highlight. Like a spotlight reel of all the best memories. We try hiding the truth of our journey, like somehow hiding the truth will change the truth of our journey. We are walking love letters, written every hour, minute, and second of our lives. A constant heartbeat, tablet that has been carved into us. Invisible scars like tattoos of happiness and pain. Chipped stones we have had to walk on and bleed. Red footprints and impaled hands we have hung on the cross of our life and used to recognize our sacrifices, somehow forgetting we are bearers of survival. Who else has bended nails from climbing out of holes? They did not let imprison them. Who else gives love when they know the love they have been given is inequitable? Who else has looked in the eyes of defeat and splashed water on their weary face, hoping they were purified and quenched of their daily battles? But you, and you, and you, and you, and me, we are walking love letters, sewn together on a patchwork fabric, an invisible tapestry we adorn ourselves with every day. Thank you. So thank you again to Hoboken Historical Museum, to Danny. I'm so honored and so happy to be able to pay tribute to Janine, what an amazing poet who has definitely influenced my work right now. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Millie. If Janine's spirit is watching down upon us, I know after that she's smiling. Thank you, Millie. Yetvart Yetvart S. Madjan is a first-generation Armenian-American poet and a sifu, which means teacher, in the Chinese Kung Fu tradition. He is the current poet in residence for the Washington Park Association in Hudson County, and the founder of a weekly poetry series and safe space open forum, The Poetry Unfold, in Union City. And if you don't know where Washington Park is, once again, for those of you watching live stream, it's up there, up the hill. In Union City, where he focuses on empowering fellow local poets. His writing and poetry have appeared in Soup Can magazine, Persian Cat Poetry, the Jersey Journal, the soon-to-be defunct Jersey Journal, the Cairo's Peace Journal, and the newly minted Way Small Press. He's been a featured poet on Poets with Purpose and featured performer at readings on both sides of the Hudson River. Yetvart is still currently accepting rejections for his 2 first manuscripts. Welcome to the club. His poetry often focuses on the subtleties of human intersubjectivity and drawing from his Armenian legacy of genocide and diaspora and themes of social justice. Most importantly, Yetvart is passionate about poetic community and being here in the community today. You can find him on Instagram at @emadjian. Let's hear it for Yetvart Madjan.
Ethnic Cleansing 2023.
A dead duck. He's gonna go like this. Touchdown.
1 ounce. One ounce of inspiration perspires from the tires as they grind and spin in mind. That's all it takes to precipitate a piece predicated on the perils we face at present. The burnt rubber incenses me. I try to waft it around so that everyone can smell it instead of me, because I know that smell, I know it well. I know the screams will be drowned out soon. I know that football fan cares more about his sauerkraut than that grandmother's pouch or this orphan's shout. I know he'll yell if the buns are stale, but never investigate what paying his taxes entails in wars. I know he'll swallow down sausages, but never witness human entrails poured out on the sides of roads. They said safe passage. They were death marches. They said safe passage. They were shot at if tired. Their dreams left their bodies as they sought mercy in eyes uncivilized, the eyes of their invaders. Embers glow in the growing fires here. I can attest that we've come a long way. But the real test is surviving the moments after the heart's arrest. It beats, pumping blood through the chest of humanity. We want it to be different. We want morality. We want conscience to emerge. It's an emergency. Johnning down though we be, it's up to us only to emerge and see. Emerge and see. They're dying, giving their last breath like a great timber tree. Emerge and see. Emerge and see. It's an emergency, begging for you to emerge and say something. Say something, the child cries, and keep on saying it. Keep wailing at the skies. Keep soliciting eyes to see the truth hidden in plain sight. Tomorrow's headlines will be twice disguised until they're all killed. Bones ground into past tense and spread like paste. Hold the pickles. Mustard, please.
Right
Emerge
here,
and
watch
see.
the spin.
Mustard, please.
Right
Emerge
there.
and see.
We
Mustard.
call that the
Say
ninja,
something
right? You
real,
spin, get him back
please.
home. You see how the back home pulls himself through? Gets the sack right there. Go ahead, Dan.
Started with the light stuff. Hi. That was a poem called Ethnic Cleansing 2023. Thank you for that introduction. I'm really grateful to Vera and Danny and Hoboken Historical for, just to echo what my fellow features have said and will say. It's such a wonderful space and it's always so relevant, and I really appreciate that very much. I come into the room as an Armenian. That poem was called Ethnic Cleansing 2023, a cry for Artsakh, a cry for Gaza. So I witnessed these parallel ethnic cleansings in this year, the year 2023, and I see these things with eyes Armenian eyes, which means that in my epigenetic there is history of genocide, and so I see the Syrian death marches through the desert. And I want to name that. These ethnic cleansings both took place with 70% Israeli weapons. 120,000 Armenians were ethnically cleansed off of their ancestral land 3 weeks before the siege of Gaza. And it also took place with 100% of American and world complicity in the margins of consciousness. And so we're here today because we're celebrating a poet who was very much a poet of conscience. but also a very incredibly dedicated poet of craft. So I want to share with you a love poem, because I think Janine Pommy Vega wrote beautiful love poems. And then I'll share with you a poem that I really love of Janine Pommy Vega's. And then I'll conclude with one that I would have loved to be able to read for Janine Pommy Vega, and of course for you. I just want to thank my grandmother for being here, and I want to anoint the space. This is going to put me over time, I apologize. But my grandmother, every time I read anything about genocide, I like to anoint that reading with a small poem that I call Candlelight. As a child, once yearly April, my grandmother lit a candle. On the tall stove for our dead, it would illuminate the nights. Flame flickering its orange dance, agonies and shadows on the walls until I asked who they were. This is how I learned, and how she ensured that pain would orient me toward the light. Thanks. So, I'd like to read you a love poem. This, incidentally, is one of the poems that was in my application and got accepted by Washington Park Association. Thank you, Washington Park Association. Also, hi to all the people on live stream. Drum therapy friends in Armenia, my partner in Germany. Alive in Poetry is not about my partner in Germany, but it's a love poem. This is after Pablo Neruda, a poem, 21 poems and a song of lament. He talks about the Chilean landscape and finds his lovers in the Chilean landscape. And I was in Union City when I wrote this poem. So in the spirit of Janine Pommy Vega and Union City, Pablo had his white thighs and would look at the world around him. The world existed in her for him. He sang birds through rivers and dug into her. The breeze became his ease in love, loss, and despair. He wove his verse into picturesque Chilean landscape. I have chain link storefronts, urban decay, Bergen line cityscape. I have smudged windows, street parking meters, and yellow caution tape. Sparse city trees and their winter branches clawing into the sky in cemetery zombie lament. I have metal gates, like boundaries, slamming down nightly, dividing the inside from the out, where the homeless make their beds. I have been tattooed with the graffiti of your unease. I am hanging like broken public telephone, swinging from bare wire in tired, flickering neon. The store is closed now, and the phone out of order. I stand before the dark wind, book in hand, learning to look with Neruda at night, storefront reading light, learning to look so that I can describe what it means to have loved you. Like he described her thighs as hills, as all of nature, as all of him, and ultimately as all gone, if not for the poetry. Thank you. So this is a poem of Janine Pommy Vega's. This doesn't happen all the time, and I think poets in the room will relate. Sometimes you read a poem and a poet, and you think, wow, this is a kindred poet, and this definitely happened, and her work is still working through me. But this is one in particular that I really love, and it's very relevant to the day that we're in, the time that we're in. Please look both ways before crossing. The desert storm we raised in Iraq was a terrorist act. We called it retaliation, the killing of tens of thousands of teenagers, just as soldiers was, we said, a casualty of war. We tried out the marvelous flares and bombs and watched the pyrotechnics safely 6,000 miles from the action in privileged seats. 6 days of televised spectaculars. We made bullseyes with Saddam Hussein at the center. He's a bully, we said. He has to come down. The invasion of Grenada was a terrorist act. We did not like the island president speaking so loudly about his brand of socialism so close to our door. To threaten invasion of Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, because they insist on tending the coca that Jaguar Hauka gave us to withstand tiredness, hunger, thirst. and cold gave them. Tiredness, hunger, thirst, and cold. And that we insist on buying and selling. That is a terrorist act. No less than Sendero Luminosos gouging the eyes out of CIA agents and leaving the bodies in fires on a hill. Acts of terrorism hurt people. Blow up bridges, skyscrapers, hospitals, villagers, naval fleets, schools, places of worship, and you will hurt people. Please look both ways before crossing. We export principally garbage and weapons of war. We stay well-fleshed on the work of others, flexing the military capitalist muscle. The "my God is bigger than your God" muscle will not bring us home. Women know it. We dress the dead. We sweep up the mess. We make our way back to the fields and replant. We put food on the table. We survive. Modesty is not such a bad hat. It's certainly lighter than armor and cheaper to care for. Are you locked down? The ABC newsman asked Governor Pataki after the Twin Towers shattered, a jailhouse term invented by jailers for locking all cells when trouble strikes. In the air, bristling with fear and hate, are we locked down? Are we safely back in our cells, accepting partial information as fact, believing the president will punish the guilty, forgetting it was our CIA who trained Osama bin Laden in the 80s, and our arms dealers who backed Hussein? Are we locked down? Please look both ways. The genuine desire for peace and freedom held in the heart of American hearts is the same in every heart in the world. It does not require victory, empire, subjugation, retaliation, or arrogance. It will not survive there. The thousands buried at the Twin Towers crumbled. The heroism, the ordinary people, the selfless service of hundreds of firemen, policemen, rescue workers, the enormity of their sacrifice. Let them stand for this, that we live in one world, a small one, to hold all the souls we are today, and any striking out will hurt more people. America, please look both ways. We can't point anywhere with blame and forget ourselves. Terrorist acts, like the pigeons on tenement rooftops, the sport of kings on the Lower East Side, always come home to roost. September 12th, 2001. Janine Pommy Vega. It feels really good to be in conversation with the Union City poets. The first poem that Danny read was written in Weehawken. I grew up in Weehawken. My grandmother lives in Weehawken. To be in conversation is really special. So this poem came to mind. It was written in 2009 and then revised. You'll hear references to the Bush administration, but also then more recently to Roe v. Wade and ethnic cleansing funded by US dollars. The poem is called Zur Ator. In Armenian, this means crooked chair. So I was raised by two grandparents who spoke to me in idioms. So Zur Ator, crooked chair, comes from Zurnsting Shidak Khosing. It means sit crooked but speak straight. Sort of like, get to the truth, get to the bottom of it, talk, be real, right? Maybe it's the idiomatic response to white man speaks with crooked tongue or forked tongue. So Zur Ator, crooked chair. Look there at those doctors of spin. So surgically they lobotomize. Vivid facts, common seen truths. Real as red apples in orchards, or a rainbow after the rainstorm, or a rock on the seashore. The kind of real you can touch, but all gone now, vaped, vanished, like moons past yesteryear when the masses did hear evangelize. We went to Iraq, many a jeer, because they hit us on 9/11. But who's that they? Saddam and Osama bin Laden? That a mistruth from thin air? Just ignorance there? All there? Not hardly. No. Those two men weren't on the same team, except we cracked the globe into us and them with no appetite, it would seem, for truth. No. Millions upon millions of taxpayer monies gobbled up by PR companies to manufacture spiked news, to make friends out of enemies, to break cognition and alter views, to make enemies out of friends and offer convenient glitches to leave our memories in stitches, repeated and repeated and repeated until the fractures in continuity faded far, far away and the lies became truths and the truths became lodged in the minds of only those who'd risk to resist, who'd risk arrest really to stay free. In times of grave injustice, our society becomes a prison for the truth and our jails become free. Ask Mandela, MLK, Bonhoeffer, Gandhi, Rosa Parks. Ask Sophie Scholl. But no, lies, lies, and more lies rippling surreptitiously into perpetuity. And those WMDs, where were they? Buried deep, deep in the deceitful psyches of those who would put their profit above football field square footages of dead bodies, innocent lives. And one more thing, we don't honor those people very much, do we? The resistors or the victims. Our lack of resistance, the victims of our lack of resistance, say their names. Amadou Diallo, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, George Floyd, but there are too many gone now like wisps of smoke. Look here, America, in the mirror, at the military-industrial complex, weapons, our greatest export, and the vastest funnel for our taxes, taking money from the poor and middle class to redistribute among the 1% and wealthy over the spoils of war. And watch the blood-soaked crumbs trickle down to those who've done their bidding, but will never be offered a seat at the same table. Wealthy at the expense of life, but never their own. It's always been those men that decree the illegal wars that cost millions of innocent lives alive, who are the first to line up and tell women the importance of life yet unborn. It's always those men who decree the death penalty that are the first in line to tell us about the sanctity of life for those not yet born. Always those men who value life the least, who put profit over people. Always those men first in line to pontificate hypocrisy. Oh, America, look here, crooked in your seat and in your deals of deceit. Look here and let's talk straight. But another thing. Those millions of military dollars taken from my pockets, our pockets, those millions you've given, we've given to authoritarian dictatorships, part of those millions left in my pocket in taxes to become Azerbaijani hellfire that invaded the borders of sovereign Armenia there. To return here just last week at my feet in the form of broken heart and agonized soul, in the form of dismembered body, female body, naked, young, Armenian woman. My money, our money, funded the rapists in Azeri military ranks who dismembered the bodies of female soldiers and broadcast their carnage. And we saw our tax dollars hard at work. They were my tribe sisters. Say their names. Anush Apetian, Alisa Melkonian, Gayane Abharian, Irina Gasparian, Susanna Grigorian, but there are too many. And they could have mothered another chess champion, inventor of the MRI, a COVID vaccine. She could have mothered a new movement for women's rights, or mothered another dead boy soldier. Mera astudzo, dear God, a dead boy soldier on the frontiers of his sanity, dug into the front lines of a nation still facing down genocide in a small country of 3 million, beleaguered by fascist Turkic ideology, leering maliciously. She could have been walking now in the meadows of her Armenian highlands, bare feet, dreaming of love, of life. Other lands have dreams too. Other lands. Palestine, Gaza, Ukraine, Congo, Sudan, Armenia, once more for all the times it's been ignored. Today she's dead. They're dead. And you've profited? Oh, America, how many soulmates have been killed by the dealings of your individualism, our individualism? How many souls spilled into rivers of blood? I could go on, but it's been said. Langston said it. Let America be America again. You've heard it from the Black lens. Now you hear it from an Armenian. Oh, America, sit crooked in your seat and in your deals of deceit. But let's talk straight. What have you done to your citizens, to your neighbors, to your poor, those soldiers and the lives you've strangled through their hands, to our taxes and the lives you've incinerated through those too, through us all? I could go on. America, look here, sit crooked, but let's talk straight. What have we done to our soul? You can't protect the lives of the unborn when you squander life. Oh, America, go on, sit crooked, but let's talk straight. What have we done and who's profited? And can we finally look right here and just talk straight? The world is waiting for us, for me, for you, even from this crooked seat, from deceit, to finally think and talk straight. Poets of all ages howl in the ageless dark to shake the cobwebs from our hearts. We're not there yet, but each and every time our hard-to-find beat they start. The flame flickers, sometimes feebly, sometimes forcefully. For you, beckons you, calls us all like a collective clarion to think and talk. To think and talk straight, even from this crooked chair, a clarion call to clarity. And when words can touch, they become solidarity. We're here today to honor a poet whose words touched and continue to touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. The poets have been pretty good, right? I'm mentioning that because I want to remind you, if you like what you heard so far, on your way out later, after a glass of wine, some cookies back there, a little bit donation in the box wouldn't hurt anyone. And for those people watching live stream, on the Hoboken Historical Museum website, there's a donate button up there, and you can give also. Wouldn't hurt. Anyway, our last poet, Vera Sirota, is the proud granddaughter of Ukrainian immigrants. Vera serves as the communications associate for the Hoboken Historical Museum, where she works alongside poet-in-residence Danny Schott on poetry programming. That in itself could be a full-time job, but anyone who works for the Hoboken Historical Museum knows that their job title does not begin to describe all the things that they do. And Vera does a whole lot, as does Rand, as does Bill, as does anyone who works here. She is the author of the chapbook We Bow to No One, published by Bottle Cap Press in 2023. We Bow to No One was the 2024 chapbook winner of the Eric Hoffer Award and earned a First Horizon Award for superior work by debut authors. It is also included right now in the Poets House Showcase in New York City. I enjoy being poet in residence. One of the things that makes it so enjoyable and great is getting to work with Vera Sirota. Let's have a really big round of applause for Vera.
Thank you so much, Danny. You feel like my poetry dad. And to the Hoboken Historical Museum family, thank you for having me read today as a poet. And to everyone tuning in, we're so excited to have you. Thank you. I think we have folks tuning in from the Woodstock Public Library. So we're really excited for you guys to be tuning in, and the Bard Prison Initiative. So thank you to everyone who responded and got in touch. Janine Pommy Vega is one of my favorite poets. And the beat movement means so much to me. I consider myself a daughter of the movement. So this is a tremendous honor to be here. I wanted to start with a poem. This is a little unorthodox, but I thought Janine would like this. Janine, Danny mentioned, she used to teach poetry workshops, and one of the communities that she was very committed to was migrant farm workers. And so she would run poetry workshops, she would translate the poems, and she has done an anthology. It was called Estamos Aquí. And I wanted to mention, I think she would be completely appalled at the current xenophobia that is just so pervasive, and anti-immigration sentiment that really roared its ugly head this past November. And so she facilitated this workshop. She had many great students, and this one poem is amazing. It's written by Jaime Trejo, and I really would like to read it to you all. I feel moved to read this to you. So she translated this poem, and she facilitated the workshop where this author wrote this. For Mexico. I am Mexican. My country is fearless. On my word, there is no other country prettier or more fearless than mine. My pride is to be a valiant and well-fitted horseman. The pride I have is being Mexican. Beautiful, beloved Mexico. If I die far from you, let them say that I am sleeping and bring me back to you. I write to your volcanoes, to your meadows and flowers, talismans of love from your loves. Too bad, beautiful, beloved Mexico, that you are so far from God and so near the United States. And I just thought that was so deep that she was able to get this student to write that. I thought that was incredible. This is from, I'm going to be unorthodox, we're a little academic. I want to read one more by Janine Pommy Vega. My other colleagues read from the Green Piano. The other community that Janine was really committed to was prisoners. She dedicated numerous decades of her life to teaching in prisons. And I really feel moved to read this poem to you. It's called Patrick Nolan, and it's dedicated to one of her students. And the sense of empathy and compassion that comes across, I find very moving. So the poem of Janine's is called Patrick Nolan. I read your poems of childhood, how you were clipped, cuffed, routinely abused by a stepfather who hated your bright red hair. You hid it under a hat. He took your hat and threw it out the car window. I thought of the death row inhabitants, how to a man and woman they were all abused as children. The killers, rapists, 100% how the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. How cruelty is a learned maneuver, not a natural act. I stood up for your poems in the contest, stark and exacting details without self-pity, so a reader was moved to tears, and you won third prize. I went to see you, like visiting a foreign country in the Sacramento floods. All the workshops at Folsom canceled due to rain. They gave me a room off the yard with only 2 students, you and another, as though I'd come to see you in Turkey. We had a 1-hour private audience. Your bright red hair, dark with years inside. A frog started piping near the drain in a corner. You stopped our meeting to find him and took him out, gave him a chance at survival. I thought how compassion starts with oneself to include all others, how your poems and you have transmuted. Last night I heard you died. I've just come down the mountain. I studied the bare trees in the sun. They said you knew it was coming. There were hundreds of maple blossoms on the forest floor. Some reds are naturally beautiful. So for Patrick Nolan, the student of Janine. I'm going to read my own poems now. My grandmother, Daria, was a poet. She wrote 8 collections of poetry in Ukrainian. I grew up reading at her readings when I was young. That's kind of how I got my education in poetry. She was a trailblazer in her own right. She was very avant-garde. In addition to writing poetry, she had a colorful love life. She was one of the first women in our community to get divorced, and she got a lot of blowback for that. But she kept at it. She did her own thing, and I'm so proud to be her granddaughter. And she had a very striking look. One of my favorite pictures is of her walking my mom to school. She had these cat glasses and a big hoop skirt and just fabulous red lipstick. And she looked like Ava Gardner. So this poem is dedicated to her, and it's called The Principalities Poet. The town tramp is actually the principalities poet. Words burn her eyelids. She leaves the kitchen floor littered with crumbs of last night's roast. Her auburn hair sways in the moonlight, enchanting every man with no effort at all. Can she help it that she has stars between her thighs, chest bursting with song, Frida's paint across her lips? Behold her majesty as she escorts her babes to school, an invisible crown pressing down, reminding her no one can degrade her without her consent. The next poem I'm going to read is called Ars Poetica. So nerdy poetry language. Ars Poetica just means like your philosophy on poetry. Anyone who knows me knows that Nina Simone is probably my favorite singer of all time. Yes, she's great. Another kindred spirit, activist, woman, creative. And I was reading her memoir, and after the assassination of Dr. King and Malcolm X, she was very disillusioned with America, and she expatriated to Liberia with her daughter. And in the memoir, she writes, that was the happiest time in her life. She felt so free living in Monrovia. And on her first day there, she went to a club at midnight, and she felt so free. She got up on a table and got undressed and was dancing. And she actually documents it in a great song called Liberian Calypso. I love that story for the lack of shame and just for the pride and sense of freedom that she embodied, and I was like, I get that. I can empathize with that feeling. And so this is my poem. Poetry and music, my twin sins, make me want to strip down to the skin, the way Nina Simone did that wet September night at the Maze Discotheque in Monrovia, 1974. She bloomed like a midnight flower by the Four Tops, petals unfurling, delighted by the synchronicity of her 12 a.m. club entrance, the feeling of freedom, and the effervescing champagne. When I hear the lyrics, the way you move is like sweet music flowing. How can I not ascend atop a table, unfasten my dress, and dance until the morning light? A fundraiser for the Hoboken Shelter put up by West of Willow, which I think was a smashing success. And I had a chance to read this poem. This poem is from my childhood. It's a true story, and I've been thinking about it a lot. It's about feminine rage, and when it comes in handy to defend yourself. And I use some colorful language. I don't want to give Bob a heart attack, but I use the P word, pussy. So, the P word. Well, let's do this. He called me a pussy in 3rd grade, seated behind me, poking pencils in my back, snarls, sneers, jeers, ruler stabbing my shoulders. Maroon Catholic school vest serves as no protection. Relentless badgering. I, at 8 years old, do not understand the word, only that it is intended to wound, demean me. An intuition emanating from my sacred triangle, even at this early age. I turn to face him. Feline claws raised, they are chipped, could never grow long, even now. No matter. I scratch. No mercy. I want to dig into his metacarpal bones, send him a message, teach him a lesson. Stigmata appears on the soft skin of his hands. His flesh is red and contrite. He learned his lesson. That's a true story. Bring it back. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me use the P word in the Hoboken Historical Museum. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm working on a second chapbook right now. Thank you. And it's going to be called What's in My Name? I've been thinking a lot about my cultural identity and my gender identity and just how did I end up the way I did. And so I analyzed my name. Vera Slowinski is my maiden name, and I decided to take my husband's name, Sparrow. And so how did that affect me, and what is the meaning of the name? How do I live that in my life? So I'm going to read that for you now. What's in my name? The root of Slowinski is Slivka, Ukrainian for plum. Ancestors' arms reached for violet-colored fruit, harvesting sweetness, delight for hungry tongues. Vera means faith, named after the ancient saint, summoned for torture by Emperor Hadrian, refusing to bow to Artemis and falsities, engulfed in boiling tar while Mother Sophia forced to watch. But yield she did not. Christ's prayer persistent on her lips. Sirota, my married name, means orphan. From the time of pogroms, lark melodies paint Odessan skies like Kandinsky. Chestnut curled children crossed the steps, whimpering in search of their executed mothers, nowhere in sight. I'm gonna finish up with a poem I wrote for Janine. My great hope for all of you here and for everyone watching at home, go out and buy Janine's books.
Yes.
Go to the library and take them out. And if they're not there, request them. Let's make sure that she is not forgotten, that her memory lives on forever. So this poem is called Instructions from Janine. And I just want to thank her for opening a door that I feel that I can walk through because of her. Decide you're not here to appease the provincial. Conventions are chains, especially for women. Make freedom yours. Scale mountains, conquer continents, but not by military force or incursion. Seek the divine feminine in every culture. Demand an equal love like Lilith. The worthy will salute your power, bring you a cup of tea while you're writing. Stand with the marginalized, children, prisoners, migrant workers. Believe in their inherent talents and voices. Support them in putting pen to paper. Speak truth to power. Bang your pots against war and oppression. Never be afraid to raise a ruckus for justice. Worship the beauty of language. Find the melody in words. I leave this sacred task for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vera Sorota. Thank you, Eddie Magian. Thank you, Millie Ansa. Thank you, Elliot Katz. And I'd like to quote Walt Whitman here. He once said, and I believe, that great poets deserve great audiences. You have been a great audience. Thank you. Thank you.